Well, good morning. I'm Reverend J. Wolin. I'm the settled minister here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Sarasota. It's great to be with you here this morning. I know many of us were here yesterday at the auction, and I think they are sleeping. Some of those people are sleeping in today. I know my wife is. But I do want to invite all, I know we have some visitors here I just met, and there may be others here or online, and I just want to welcome you especially and let you know that you are welcome to participate in any of the events in this church. We invite you, if you want to register online. We have on the banner, you can sign in and you will get a weekly email and a couple of other Zoom links to programs that are going on online as well. If you're here in person, we have somebody at the desk right outside the sanctuary door who'll be happy to take your name. We invite you to coffee and snacks afterwards, and we look forward to getting to know each other. And now we have an announcement from our racial justice coordinating team, Nina Tortelli.
Good morning. You are invited to attend the workshop, Building a Culture of Inclusion, this Friday evening, 6:30 to 8:30, and Saturday, 10 to 3:30. The planning team, okay, here we are, have put this amazing workshop together, but we are so honored and excited to have Dr. Paula Cole-Jones here in person leading this workshop. She has over 20 years experience designing and facilitating workshops for Unitarian Universalist congregations and organizations throughout the country. She is a leader in the Unitarian Universalist Association. Her work includes leading the advancement of the eighth principle and the concept of building community of communities for widening the circle of inclusion. This is a board-sponsored, free, interactive event, and we come together to learn concepts and strategies for building the beloved community here at UUCS. There's still time to register for in-person and Zoom attendance. We need to know the numbers, however, so as soon as possible so that we can arrange the tech issues that will be involved, and also the room arrangements, and for the numbers that will be attending for Saturday's lunch in between the workshop. Stop by the social justice table today to register, or in person or online. And here I would like to introduce Paula Cole-Jones, giving you a personal invitation to attend.
We, Unitarian Universalists, are a community of communities, living our values, fulfilling our mission in the world, and working to build the beloved community. This is how I think about us. Hi, I am Paula Cole-Jones, a lifelong Unitarian Universalist. I look forward to meeting you soon. It won't be long before we are together for a workshop on the eighth principle and building a culture of inclusion. I hope that you will join us. So much has happened in recent years. Our culture is changing. The world is changing. We have been in a global pandemic for about 2 years, and another generation is coming of age. What lies ahead for Unitarian Universalism? Our association is changing in new and exciting ways, but change often comes with challenges. What do we hold on to? What do we let go of? These are sometimes hard choices to make. In the upcoming workshop entitled Building a Culture of Inclusion, We will share some ideas that can give us flexibility as we explore who we are as Unitarian Universalists and who we might become in the years ahead. One workshop participant said, quote, "If I were on the fence about the eighth principle, I would have been 100% convinced that it is the right thing to do," end quote. So look, I hope that you are interested and that you will come and meet and be in discussion with your fellow congregants, and that together we will begin to take a look at how do we reinvent ourselves for a vibrant future. You take care. See you soon.
One other quick announcement, this being the first Sunday of the month, we invite you, if you are interested in becoming a member of this church, to about 10 minutes after the service, to meet in the minister's office, which is in the Lexau wing, the building right opposite the sanctuary, where you get to meet with other members. We do a little ceremony, and we will still have a formal thing in service and a getting to know you class, but we want to give people the opportunity to join on a monthly basis as the Spirit moves them. And so now I invite you to rise in body and or spirit for our opening hymn number 170, "We Are a Gentle, Angry People." Our opening reading is entitled Embodiment by the Reverend Ranwa Hamami. Grounding ourselves into deep gratitude for the miracles of our bodies, however they look, move, and interact with the world around us, includes not only a celebration of our individual physical beings, but also a deep reverence for the intimacy of our connections. After all, our bodies do not exist in a vacuum. We physically interact with countless structures, systems, and communities each day that impact and are impacted by our flesh, bones, and spirit. For some of us, these interactions are predominantly empowering, moments of welcome and respect. And for some of us, we encounter confusion, denial, and outright rejection as the norm. As Unitarian Universalists, we historically embrace the breadth of our lived experience of the world as a faithful teacher, crossing the permeable barrier between the sacred and profane to deepen our embodiment of liberating and life-affirming holy truths. End quote. Let the lighting of our chalice be a symbol of that inner light that will lead us on the path of liberation. So please join me now in saying the words of affirmation. As we light this chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, we affirm our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
It's so wonderful to see so many of you here today. Our story today is Don't Hug Doug, He Doesn't Like It, written by Carrie Finnison and drawings by Daniel Wiseman. You can hug a pug, aww, or you can hug a bug, maybe, or a slug, ew, but don't hug Doug, he doesn't like it. You can hug a Valentine, sweet, or a porcupine, not recommended, or a Frankenstein, but don't hug Doug, he doesn't like it. Don't worry, Doug likes you, he just doesn't like hugs. Doug thinks hugs are too squeezy, and too squashy, and too squishy, and too smooshy. But there are lots of things Doug does like. He likes to sort his rock collection, and try on his sock collection, and draw with his chalk collection. And he really likes harmonica bands. But he doesn't like hugs. So no matter how huggable he looks, no matter how much you want to, even if it's his birthday, please don't hug Doug. What about hello hugs? Nope. What about goodbye hugs? Nope. What about game-winning home run hugs? Nuh-uh. What about dropped ice cream cone hugs? Still no, but I'd like another scoop. There is one kind of hug that Doug does like, and he likes a not squeezy, not squashing, not squooshy, not smooshy, just right bedtime hug from his mom. Is it bedtime? Are you Doug's mom? No, you're not. So don't hug Doug. Can you hug these people? Doug's best friend Finn, his grandma McGinn, an identical twin, that kid? There's only one way to find out. Ask. Can I hug you? Not now, gotta roll. Can I hug you, Grandma? Oh yes, I always loved hugs and I always will. Can I hug you? Yes, no. Can I hug you? Ba-ga-gu-ga. That means yes. Yes. Can you hug Doug's pet pot-bellied pig? Ask. Can we hug your pet pot-bellied pig? Yes, she loves hugs, but be gentle. She gets scared of strangers. Some people love hugs, and lots of people don't. And lots of people are somewhere in the middle. Who likes hugs? So, can you hug Doug? No, he doesn't like it. Oh, nay, hugs, hey. That's pig Latin if you didn't know. But he likes you, and he likes high fives. Doug is a master of high fives. There's the low fives and the side fives, the double five and the elbow five. They should name that the COVID five. There's the jump five, the puppy five, and my favorite, the granny five. He even has a high five for you. So go ahead and ask. No, I don't, but I do like high fives. So, as a person who loves hugs, I have a hard time remembering that not everyone does like hugs. And coming out of COVID, where I'm getting to see people again, all my intentions of asking have just gone out the window, and I just dive right in. But Doug reminds us that each of us has and should have the right to their own personal space, and more importantly, how they want people to act in their space. Each of us have and should have the right to say how they want people to touch them or not. Your body is your own. And even if you're a hugger like me or not, the best way to respect someone is to ask them their preferences, because it's all about them and their comfort and not about you and your likes. So now I invite our younger UUs to join me in this West Wing, where we'll explore this month's Soul Matters theme of love, starting with loving yourself. Thank you.
And now it is my honor to introduce from Vienna, Hermann Bount, who has, I hope I got that right, who's graciously sharing his gifts today with us. Thank you. Thank you very much. Beautiful. Our centering in words today from the Reverend Greta Jo Seidel, and it's entitled, You Are Loved, and I will invite you, it's going to be a refrain, and I invite you to say it back to me each time that you are loved. If you had an abortion, you are loved. If you've never told a soul, or if you share your story regularly, you are loved. If you're confident in your decision, or wonder if it was the right choice, you are loved. If you are queer, non-binary, trans, two-spirit, or a cis woman, you are loved. If you are child-free by choice, or cannot biologically have children, or want to have children eventually, you are loved. If your choice was driven by medical viability or your own emotional health, you are loved. If you found a provider to care for you, or if you had to rely on yourself, you are loved. If you are always pro-choice, or if your choice conflicts with your beliefs, you are loved. If you love your body, or are still angry with your body, you are loved. If you believe God loves you, or you believe in nothing divine at all, you are loved. If you find yourself reflected here in these words, or if your truth is more than these words can say, then you are loved. As we go into a time of silence, I invite you to contemplate all the ways that you are loved. So this week we're going to start a little experiment. Instead of one 20-minute sermon towards the end of the service, I'm going to try 2 10-minute reflections throughout the service. I look forward to your feedback about that. Seriously, I do. When I was in high school, I took an elective class called World of Women. Now, my reason for taking this class was not for education, but It was not. It was to meet girls. And my plan was very sound. I was one of only 3 boys in a class of 25 students. Not that it helped, but one of my required readings in the class included the book Our Bodies, Ourselves, a book written by women for women. From the humming, I sense many of you have recognized this book. But for those who have not, are not familiar with it, it included education about anatomical body parts, sex-positive messages, birth control, pregnancy, postpartum issues, and discussions about hospital care for women, among many, many other topics. Now, I cannot imagine this book being allowed in Florida schools today. Although not my intention in taking the class, it ended up being quite an education. Like many men and boys, I should say, from my generation, communication about sex was non-existent in my household. I was fortunate I did not receive negative messages about sex, but which some religions espouse. But in general, I was fairly clueless about the details until I took this class. So I did get an education. Public schools, by the way. I just want to point that out. Now, I feel my children were very fortunate that they grew up in Unitarian Universalism, and they took our sexuality education program called OWL, Our Whole Lives. My conversations about love, sex, and relationships with my children consisted of, so what did you learn in class tonight? Which actually did lead to some really in-depth conversations with them. So January 22nd was the 50th anniversary of Roe v. the court case of Roe v. Wade, a court case that legalized a woman's right to end their pregnancy in the United States. And so I first want to just state the obvious. Reproductive justice is a challenging and emotional topic. The questions and issues raised are very personal. I'm going to share my interpretation of it, and I understand people have to process things differently or may have different interpretations of this. But I do believe that each person should be able to make reproductive decisions themselves based on their conscience. Unitarian Universalists have a long history of supporting bodily autonomy. And although some would debate whether she was a Unitarian, Margaret Sanger certainly associated with Unitarians throughout her life and became the founder of an organization that ultimately became Planned Parenthood. Born in 1879, Sanger was the 6th child whose mother ended up being pregnant 18 times in her lifetime, yes. And a mother, sadly, who died at the age of 50, and this deeply impacted Sanger. Sanger also was a nurse who worked delivering babies in the poorest communities in New York. She saw the abject poverty, suffering, and death of women and children whose lives were often at risk due to childbirth. But I must be honest, Sanger is a very complex person. She spoke and wrote about her support for the eugenics movement, a movement that utilized birth control and sterilization to control reproduction to achieve what was considered desirable traits. She was of the belief that certain sociological conditions such as criminality were inheritable traits. But she also risked her freedom to provide women bodily autonomy, which was always her stated primary goal and her purpose in life. So clearly a complex person. But Sanger was arrested at least 8 times in the course of her life due to providing information and resources to women about avoiding and eliminating pregnancy. And once upon being arrested for importing a diaphragm from overseas, and which was illegal at the time. She did it purposely, knowing that. The judge, after when she was in court, told her, and I quote, "Women should not have the right to have sex with any sense of security that pregnancy would not result," end quote. Our patriarchal society has long tried to restrict women's autonomy, and particularly autonomy over their reproductive choices and decisions. In 1963, the Unitarian Universalist General Assembly passed its first statement supporting a woman's right to choose to end a pregnancy. It was the first religious organization to do so, and I am proud of that. Prior to Roe v. Wade, many UUs were active in an interfaith underground network that helped women who sought to end a pregnancy. Over the years, there have been statements voted on at General Assembly against governmental laws limiting Roe v. Wade. Unitarian Universalists lobbied and used civil disobedience to support contraceptive care in the Affordable Care Act. And in 2012, we as an association chose a 4-year action study plan item that led to a statement of conscience entitled Reproductive Justice. The framework of the statement was influenced by the BIPOC organization, BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, People of Color, BIPOC, called Sister Song. And the opening language of the statement of conscience is, and I quote, "As Unitarian Universalists, we embrace the reproductive framework which espouses the human right to have children, not to have children, to parent the children one has in healthy environments, and to safeguard bodily autonomy, and to express one's sexuality freely," end quote. This framework, a broader approach to think about reproductive rights. It is inclusive of other phrases such as reproductive health and reproductive choice. And when I hear people who coerce or judge pregnant individuals talking about the right to life, I ask, what about the pregnant person's life? What about the child's life once it is born? You know, if the people really want to reduce the number of pregnancies ended, they would support sexuality education and contraceptives. But often they do not, because like the judge in the Margaret Sanger case, they believe the only purpose for sex should be to procreate. Butch Hancock, who founded a groundbreaking progressive country group in the 70s called the Flatlanders, wrote, and I quote, "Life in Lubbock, Texas taught me two things. One is that God loves you and you're going to burn in hell. And the other is that sex is the most awful, filthy thing on earth, and you should save it for the person that you love." That is often the message people hear. Unitarian Universalism, though, believes that sexuality is not only beautiful but sacred. Within consenting relationship between adults, sex is perfectly natural. People should have the right to have sex with a sense of security that pregnancy will not result. Now, every religion has their own beliefs about sexuality and reproduction. In fact, every religion has multiple beliefs around reproductive issues. In the Jewish tradition, the Hebrew scriptures, the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 7 states and says, God formed man. And when I say man, the word Adam comes from Adama, which is dust of the earth. Not really man, dust of the earth. God formed the dust of the ground and breathed into its nostrils the breath of life. And this human became a living being, end quote. Thus, according to the Jewish tradition, until the being breathed its first light, its first breath, it is not human. There are numerous writings in the Talmud, which are commentaries by ancient Jewish rabbis, that clearly state a fetus is not a person and is part of the mother, not a separate being. Now, of course, more Orthodox Jewish rabbis have a different interpretation. Catholic hierarchy, which are celibate men, believe human life is created at the moment of conception. But I can tell you, last week I was on a phone call organized by Catholics for Choice with Senator Rubio's office discussing women's justice issues. This Catholic organization holds a contrary position from the hierarchy about reproductive decisions. Traditional Buddhism speaks about the reincarnated soul entering at conception. However, Western Buddhism tends to focus on and support reproductive justice, speaking about compassion for the mother. So in various religions, there are conflicting interpretations. They appear during different times or locations throughout the world that support different views about when life starts. And so when a pregnancy becomes a life is a very theological position, and the government should not take a position on theological grounds. The first sentence of the First Amendment of the United States Constitution states, and I quote, "Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof," end quote. Freedom is a very important value to Unitarian Universalists. As Vice President Harris said in a speech in Tallahassee, can we truly be free if a woman cannot make decisions about her life? Can we truly be free if a doctor cannot care for her patients? Can we truly be free if families cannot make intimate decisions about the course of their own lives? End quote. So this is why we must continue to thrive as a free church, sharing our message of love and justice. And I now invite you to exercise your freedom by freeing some of the money from your wallets or credit cards as we take our offering. Please be as generous as you can. For those online or here on your cell phone, there's a link in the YouTube video or under today's description on the website. Let this sacred time begin.
Right to life
by Marge Percy. A woman is not a basket you place your buns in to keep them warm. Not a brood hen you can slip duck eggs under. Not the purse holding the coins of your descendants till you spend them in war. Not a bank where your genes gather interest in interesting mutations in the tainted rain, any more than you are. You plant corn and you harvest it to eat or sell. You put the lamb in the pasture to fatten and haul it in for chops. You slice the mountain for coal, and the waters run muddy for miles and years. Fish die, but you do not call them yours unless you wished to eat them. Now you legislate mineral rights in women. You lay claim her pasture for grazing, fields for growing babies like iceberg lettuce. You value children so dearly that none ever go hungry, none weep with no one to tend them when mothers work. None lack fresh fruits, none chew lead or cough to death, and your orphanages are empty. Every noon, the best restaurants serve poor children steak. At this moment, at 9 o'clock, a midwife is performing a tabletop abortion on an unwed mother in Texas who only has Medicaid for insurance. In 5 days, she will die of tetanus, and her little daughter will cry and be taken away. Next door, a husband and wife are sticking pins in the son they did not want. They will explain for hours how wicked he is and how he wants discipline. We are all born of women. In the rose of the womb, we suckled our mother's blood. And every baby born has a right to love like a seedling to the sun. Every baby born unloved, unwanted, is a bill that will come due in 20 years with interest and an anger that must find a target, a pain that will beget pain. A decade downstream, a child screams, a woman falls, a synagogue is torched, a firing squad is summoned, a button is pushed, and the world burns. I will choose what enters me, what becomes my flesh. Without choice, no politics, no ethics lives. I am not your cornfield, not your uranium mine, not your calf for fattening, not your cow for milking. You may not use me as your factory. Priests and legislators do not hold shares in my womb or mind. This is my body. If I give it to you, I want it back. My life is a non-negotiable demand.
Oh, wonderful, thank you. So overturning Roe v. Wade did not just happen overnight. It took years of careful planning and action, and I imagine it will take years of planning and action to restore this right nationally. Some of that work has already started, though. 3 states, Vermont, California, and Michigan, have passed state constitutional ballot measures affirming reproductive freedom or bodily autonomy. 2 other states, Kentucky and Kansas, attempted to pass a state ballot measure denying constitutional rights to ending a pregnancy, and both of those failed. Currently, there are lawsuits against 17 states that have implemented restrictions since the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And as we saw in the last election, regaining reproductive justice was a predominant issue when people voted, and we must ensure that it stays on people's mind every election until our rights are restored. As of now, Florida has a 15-week waiting period within which to end a pregnancy. And there are lawsuits already challenging that limitation. But as with any issue that we face, there are a number of steps in our work. We must understand the religious values that underpin our work. We must be educated. We must be a public witness to influence the community. We must organize and advocate for change, and we must strive for systemic change. But until these things happen, we must also be here to be of service to women who are denied their autonomy to make decisions about their bodies. So why is reproductive justice part of our religious values? Unitarian Universalist principles call to us to this expansive approach of reproduction. We do share a reverence for life indicated in our first source. If a person chooses to bring a pregnancy to fruition, the parent should be able to be confident that they will have the ability to raise that child in a healthy environment. You know, Florida has not accepted the full Medicaid expansion that could help many people who find themselves, especially those in lower socioeconomic conditions. And if we have a reverence for life, let us extend health benefits, pre- and postnatal care for all people who need it. Our principles say we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We believe in the right of the woman to discern by their own conscience, to make decisions about what is best for their life. We believe in justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. And the reason I choose not to use the phrase reproductive choice all the time is because many women, especially poor women, do not have a choice, right? Because they do not have access to reproductive health care, right? Because many states have closed down, places that offered this type of care. And so these women don't have a choice. And so until every woman is free, no one is free. So what can we do? Well, first, we can continue to educate ourselves. Starting Wednesday, February 15th, the Reproductive Justice Team and I will be starting a 7-week adult religious education class entitled Sacred Principles and Commitment. SACRED is an acronym for Spiritual Alliance of Communities for Reproductive Dignity. All Souls Unitarian Universalist in Washington, D.C. is a founding member of SACRED and participated in the creation of this curriculum. We will learn and discuss the history of reproductive justice. We will dive deeper into the theological underpinnings of the issue. We will explore how intersectional oppression impacts individual reproductive decisions. We will examine the need for support for parents in raising children in a healthy, supportive environment. We will engage in spiritual activism to guide us in our future commitments. So I encourage you all to attend. If you want to participate in the ongoing justice work, please contact Kate Landman, who spoke just earlier. She's the chair of our reproductive justice team. The team will research and coordinate with other organizations that have similar values about reproductive justice. And together we need to be able to provide care to women so they will have access to reproductive medical care. Perhaps we'll need to provide a sanctuary and create a new underground railroad for women and doctors until reproductive freedoms are returned. We not only need to shout about it in the streets, in the courthouse, and at the voting booth, but we also need to have quiet conversations with others and not demonize them for having different views, but also demand that we not be demonized for having our views as well. We are at a turning point in the history of this country and this state. There is a fever of intolerance that just seems to have gripped a segment of the population. We see the fear of diversity in the vandalized art which we sponsored in the Embracing Our Differences exhibit. We see the fear of equity in the gutting of education at New College and other public educational institutions. We see the fear of inclusion in the censorship of book and African American studies. They fear the message of love, compassion, and inclusion because it is a threat to the straight, white, male, patriarchal system that has had control of women and this society for far too long. The time is now. The time is now, and we are at the epicenter, and we can make a difference. Let us build our resolve. Let us build our resistance to this rising hate. After the vandalism at the Embracing Our Differences organization, they put out a statement, and I quote, "Diversity is real, not a slogan. Human beings come in all shapes, sizes, colors, ethnic backgrounds, abilities, and sexual orientations. That is a fact," end quote. Unitarian Universalism is an expansive religion that calls us to the side of love, to side with love. Love as a positive force in the universe. Love that creates, love that endures. Let us be a positive force in our community. Let us create a society that respects bodily autonomy. Let us endure and thrive as we face the challenges ahead. May it be so. I now invite you to rise in body and or spirit to sing along with our closing song, "We Will Not Be Controlled" by Abigail Benson.
We will not be controlled. I am sovereign in my body. I am sovereign in my soul. We will not be controlled. I am sovereign in my body. I am sovereign in my soul. Sing it with me. We will not be controlled. I am sovereign in my spirit. I am sovereign in my soul. We will not be controlled. I am sovereign in my body. I am sovereign in my soul. We will not be controlled. Oh, I am sovereign in my body. I am sovereign in my soul.
Woo. Our closing words today are excerpt from the 2022 UUA General Assembly Action of Immediate Witness. We do not consent. Taking action to ensure access to abortion. Our Unitarian Universalist faith affirms that all bodies are sacred and that we are each endowed with the twin gifts of agency and conscience. Each of us should have the power to decide what does and doesn't happen to our bodies at every moment of our lives, because consent and bodily autonomy are holy. Please join me in extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you all for your presence here today. Thank you.